Joining us now is Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley, a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm drowning in transcripts, but I know that you've been through all of these things live. I wanted to read that one, setting up this discussion with you, because I was struck by that sort of bald-faced testimony that the White House made the decision to hold up Javelin missiles that were otherwise due to be delivered to Ukraine, and that all agencies believe should be delivered on White House concerns that Russia might mind.
Here's what's questioning. What's Mick Mulvaney doing making that decision when he's the head of OMB? It's extraordinarily unusual. It leads me to believe that Mick Mulvaney wasn't making that decision in his role. It was making that decision based on something the president was saying or doing, which is more consistent with the rest of the policy in Ukraine. The reasons that they state that they're doing clearly aren't the case.
Well, Ms. Croft goes on to suggest in her testimony that this direction, she seems to have been under the impression that this direction on those Javelin missiles came from the president. It is hard for us, I think, from the vantage point that we have as observers, people who have been reading the transcripts released by the impeachment committees, it's hard for us to discern how many people were acting of their own volition and how many people were acting at the direction of the president. Is that something that you feel that you can discern from your perspective on the Intelligence Committee without being able to depose people like Mick Mulvaney, people like Rick Perry, people like Rudy Giuliani?
It's tough, but let's look what's in the public record. You have Mulvaney's admission to this whole point. You have the White House call transcript. You have the Volcker text. You have all this testimony here that you piece together. And the bottom line is there is absolutely no way this takes place. All the things that we're learning about, the extortion of one of our closest allies, without the President of the United States dictating that. When these gang of 3 or 4 go to the White House and talk about the new presidency in Ukraine, the president keeps saying over and over again, talk to Giuliani. So clearly the shadow government, the foreign policy they're talking about, has set aside the established cream of our diplomatic corps so they can do the president's bidding to help him politically.
Congressman, I think a lot of people are wondering whether or not we should expect the public hearings that start on Wednesday to be just a public version of the kind of discussions that you all have been having behind closed doors that we can read these transcripts of now. For Americans who have been sort of aware that this is going on and watching the headlines but not following it closely, should we expect that people tuning in on Wednesday to watch those hearings, paying attention to this closely for the first time, that they'll be able to follow this in basic terms starting from square one? Or are you guys kind of picking up with where you left off with these closed-door depositions?
Well, I think there's a reason that in a jury trial they don't just hang out depositions in a civil case. There's a lot to be said for watching these people testify. And what struck me about them was they were clear, they were consistent, they were compelling, and I think that they showed the truth of what they were saying. I think it was very hard to bump them off their game. And I think that will help a great deal as the American people watch their testimony.
We're going to have 2 public hearings this week, sir. Do you anticipate that'll be a pace going forward, where we'll have a couple of hearings per week and it'll go on for a little while? Do you have any sense of the overall time frame here?
Look, some of this has to go with what time allows. We do have a time crunch here. Unfortunately, one we didn't create because of the White House's obstruction here and the fact that so many of their witnesses were not allowed to testify. I look back at Watergate. The Article 3 of the Articles of Impeachment against Richard Nixon dictates 4 times in which Richard Nixon obstructed that investigation. We saw that happen once. In one day, they obstructed 4 times, where 4 people were supposed to testify that did not because the White House told them not to. All of these witnesses were told not to. Many of them had the courage of their conviction to come forward. This is compelling testimony. Only a small percentage of the American people had read the special counsel's report on what took place with Russia. Far more people watched these hearings as they took place. I'm hoping we have the same effect here coming this week.
Congressman Mike Quigley, member of the Intelligence Committee. Sir, good luck this week. Thanks very much for joining us.